Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Are You Annie podcast, where those who have walked through fire or are still walking through it come to the other side of narcissistic abuse. If that's you and you're still in the fire, picking up the pieces, still finding your way forward, you're not alone. You need to know that. I'm your host, Kyle Hackley, attorney, mother, grandmother, and author of Undercurrent, a story of Annie Black, who escapes her narcissistic husband to reclaim her life and her identity. Annie is a fictional character, but her story is real. It's woven from the stories of the many women who shared their experiences with me about narcissistic abuse. And it's what propelled this space, which we now call Are You Annie? This episode is about something many survivors experience. It's when a narcissist lets you go and then comes back when you're thriving. Narcissists don't hold on to their victims physically. They let them go when they know and they're sure they can still control them emotionally. And that's what exactly happened to Annie in Undercurrent. When she left Santino, he didn't fight to make her come home. He just let her walk away. That might have been surprising to some, but it wasn't because he was deeply in love with her, cared about her well-being. It was because her suffering was still a way that he could control her. Let's face it, Annie was struggling as a single mom. She was drowning in schoolwork, living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with her little girl, and she was financially drained. And from a distance, Santino enjoyed seeing her struggle. He was so sure that she would fail and just come crawling back. In fact, her hardship during this time validated his belief that she couldn't survive without him. From afar, though, he didn't have to witness any part of her strength. He just had to enjoy her pain. But this is how narcissists operate. They won't always chase you down when you leave. Sometimes they'll let you go, confident that life is just going to break you down and you're going to come crawling back and they're going to be waiting for you. But what happens when you don't fail? When you rise, rebuild, and become stronger than ever, that's when the narcissist is likely to suddenly reappear. Santino saw Annie go from a struggling single mother to a successful equine surgeon. The moment she stepped into her power, he wanted her back. But why is that? A narcissist can want his partner back for different reasons in different stages. When his partner is weak, of course, he feels superior, and that definitely fuels his ego. If she's thriving, he's the inferior one, and of course, that wounds his ego. To fix that wound, he has to either reclaim her as a prize. Look at me. I have this fancy doctor as a wife, and it just improves or enhances his ego. Or he wants her back to destroy her success and prove that she could never live without him. In Annie's case, Santino wanted her to come home, not as the prize. He wanted to tear her down again and prove that she needs him. Now, there's a scene in Undercurrent where Santino tells Annie that, okay, I've let you get away with this for a very long time, and it's got to be out of your system, this job thing. And now it's time to come home and be my wife and a proper mother to your daughter. I mean, he just had to prove that everything that he had been telling her is which was, you are nothing and you can't live without me. He had to prove that those statements were true. Otherwise, he'd be wrong about all that and he wouldn't be able to stand it. This whole thing about him wanting Annie back wasn't about love. It was about Santino wanting his control back. He didn't want to lose his grip on her. and he couldn't stand to see her thrive without him. And perhaps a lot of this had to do with the fact they had a daughter. And so he was always going to have to see Annie if he was going to ever see his daughter. And he wasn't prepared to see Annie live a better life. But here's the thing. When he was making these demands that she had to come home, even threatened her with a custody suit to do so, Annie wasn't the same woman. She definitely wasn't the same person who left Santino, and that's what made all of the difference. By now, Annie's an equine surgeon, and through her work with horses, especially her own horse, Red, she learned some powerful lessons. A 1,200-pound horse will not follow someone who is weak or is unsure. He follows someone who stands in their own truth. A horse doesn't demand submission like Santino did. The horses helped her build enough trust that she could be an authentic leader. The horses didn't manipulate, gaslight, or break her down. Annie's horse, as most horses will, mirror emotion, and he responds to who you truly are. And that was Annie's turning point. Yes, a horse was Annie's turning point. She no longer needed Santino's validation. She no longer needed to prove anything to him. And that's when his power over her shattered. And that's the key. Narcissists only have power over them if you still need their approval. So once Annie stepped into her confidence, once she knew she was capable, worthy, and strong, Santino's attempts to control her waned. Now, it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. If you've ever had a narcissist let you go without a fight, only to come crawling back when you started doing well, know this, at least in my opinion, they truly let you go because they enjoyed seeing your misery. They didn't come back because they're so in love with you. They returned because they couldn't stand losing control over you. Your success threatens the narcissist because it proves to them that they never had the power over you that they thought they did. The best revenge is not anger, not proving them wrong, and it's certainly not taking them back. The best revenge is healing, growing, and becoming so strong in yourself that their attempts to manipulate you become meaningless. Thank you for joining me on the Are You Annie podcast. If Annie's story or if any conversation in this podcast resonates with you, or if you've lived through something similar, I would love to hear from you. Drop me a comment, send me a message, and let's keep this conversation going. Here, we don't talk about victims. We talk about warriors against narcissistic abuse, because that's why Are You Annie exists. Annie isn't just any one person. It's anyone who has been in a place of confusion, fear, and self-doubt. Annie is every woman and man who has struggled to break free from the cycle of narcissistic abuse. So to every Annie out there who has found just a little bit of validation through these conversations, I see you and I appreciate you. If anything in this sparked something in you, please share this podcast, because you never know who might need to hear them. And as always, you are stronger than you know. I want you to be tenacious and never give up on what you believe in. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.